The accusation came on the hottest day in August 1883, when the Kansas sun had turned the earth to dust, and old Mrs. Henderson pointed her gnarled finger at 22-year-old Eliza Hartwell and declared her a witch who had cursed the town of Redemption Springs with drought. Eliza stood in the middle of the dried-up town square, her dark hair plastered to her neck with sweat, her simple cotton dress clinging to her frame as hostile eyes bore into her from every direction. She had come to town for supplies, nothing more, but now she found herself surrounded by desperate farmers whose crops had withered in the fields for 3 months straight without a single drop of rain. "My grandmother warned me about women like you, Mrs. Henderson shrieked, her voice carrying across the silent square. "Coming here from back east with your strange ways, living alone in that cabin by the creek. The rain stopped the week you arrived." Eliza's hands trembled, but she kept her chin high. "I am not a witch. I am a schoolteacher who came here to start fresh after my parents died. The drought is not my fault." "Then why did it start when you came?" Another voice shouted from the growing crowd. "Coincidence," Eliza said firmly, though her heart hammered against her ribs. She had heard of towns turning on outsiders during hard times, but she had never imagined she would become the target of such fear and anger. A tall figure pushed through the crowd then, broad shoulders parting the angry farmers like Moses parting the Red Sea. Eliza recognized him immediately as Cole Brennan, the 25-year-old cowboy who worked at the Double R Ranch just outside of town. She had seen him around Redemption Springs over the past months, always polite, always tipping his hat to her when their paths crossed. He had kind gray eyes and sun-weathered skin, and right now those eyes were fixed on the mob with steel in them. "That is enough," Cole said, his voice calm but carrying an authority that made people step back. "You all should be ashamed of yourselves. Blaming an innocent woman for weather patterns is not just foolish, it is dangerous." "Stay out of this, Brennan," growled Tom Pritchard, a farmer whose wheat fields had turned to dust. "This does not concern you." "It concerns me when I see good people acting like a lynch mob," Cole shot back. "Miss Hartwell has done nothing wrong. She teaches children to read and write. She helps at the church socials. She is no more responsible for this drought than any of you are." Mrs. Henderson's eyes narrowed. "Why are you defending her unless you are under her spell too?" Cole's jaw tightened. "Because it is the right thing to do. Now all of you go home. Take care of your families. Pray for rain if you want, but leave Miss Hartwell alone." The crowd muttered and grumbled but slowly began to disperse. Tom Pritchard spat in the dirt near Eliza's feet before turning away, and she flinched at the gesture. When the square finally cleared, she found herself alone with Cole, her legs shaking so badly she thought she might collapse. "Are you all right?" Cole asked gently, stepping closer but keeping a respectful distance. "No," Eliza admitted, her voice breaking. "I am terrified. What if they come for me in the night? What if they burn down my cabin?" Cole removed his hat and ran a hand through his dark hair, his expression troubled. "I will not let that happen. I will ride out to your place tonight and keep watch if you will allow it." Eliza looked up at him, seeing genuine concern in his face. "Why would you do that for me? You barely know me." "I know enough," Cole said simply. "I know you are a good person being blamed for something beyond anyone's control. That is enough for me." Tears stung Eliza's eyes, but she blinked them back. "Thank you. I do not know what would have happened if you had not stepped in." "Nothing good," Cole said grimly. He offered her his arm. "Let me walk you to your wagon. I will follow you home and make sure you get there safely." Eliza hesitated only a moment before taking his arm, grateful for the solid strength of him beside her. As they walked toward the edge of town where she had left her wagon and horse, she could feel eyes watching from windows and doorways. The hostility hung in the air like smoke. "I should leave," Eliza said quietly. "Maybe if I go, they will find peace." "They will just find someone else to blame," Cole replied. "Fear makes people irrational. You have every right to stay in your home. Besides, where would you go?" Eliza had no answer for that. She had used every penny of her small inheritance to buy her cabin and a few acres of land. She had nowhere else to go, no family left in the world. Redemption Springs was supposed to be her fresh start, her chance to build a new life. Cole helped her into her wagon and then mounted his own horse, a sturdy bay gelding named Copper. True to his word, he followed her the 5 miles out of town to her small cabin nestled near what had once been a flowing creek, but was now just a trickle of muddy water. The land around her property was brown and brittle, the vegetable garden she had planted completely dead. "I will bed down in your barn if that is acceptable," Cole said as Eliza climbed down from the wagon. "That way I can keep an ear out for trouble." "I cannot ask you to do that," Eliza protested. "You are not asking, I am offering." Cole's expression left no room for argument. "Besides, it will give me peace of mind knowing you are safe." Eliza nodded slowly. "At least let me bring you some supper and a blanket." "That would be appreciated, ma'am. Please call me Eliza. After what happened today, formalities seem unnecessary." A small smile tugged at Cole's lips. "Only if you call me Cole." That night, Eliza brought him a simple meal of beans and cornbread along with a quilt and pillow. Her barn was small but sturdy, with room for her single horse and a milk cow. Cole had already settled Copper in an empty stall and was checking the doors and windows when she arrived. "It is not much," Eliza apologized, handing him the food. "It is perfect," Cole assured her, accepting the plate gratefully. "Thank you." They stood in awkward silence for a moment, the reality of their strange situation settling over them. Here was a man she barely knew, preparing to sleep in her barn to protect her from her neighbors. It should have felt wrong or frightening, but instead Eliza felt only gratitude and something else she could not quite name. "Why did you really defend me today?" she asked softly. "Most men would have looked the other way." Cole met her gaze steadily. "Because I lost someone once to ignorance and fear. My younger sister, she had fits sometimes, seizures the doctor called them. Some folks in our old town in Texas said she was possessed by demons. My father tried to protect her, but one night a group of men came to drive the evil out. They hurt her so badly that she never recovered. She died 3 days later. She was only 15 years old." Eliza covered her mouth with her hand, horror washing through her. "Cole, I am so sorry." "That was 7 years ago," Cole said, his voice rough with old pain. "But I swore that day I would never stand by and watch innocent people be hurt by superstition and mob mentality. So when I saw what was happening to you today, I could not stay silent." "Your sister was lucky to have a brother like you," Eliza said gently. "Not lucky enough," Cole replied bitterly. Then he shook his head as if clearing away dark thoughts. "Get some rest, Eliza. I will be right here if you need anything." Eliza wanted to say more, to offer some comfort for his loss, but she could see he needed to be alone with his memories. She returned to her cabin and tried to sleep, but every creak of the house made her jump. She kept thinking about Cole's sister, about the cruelty people were capable of when fear took hold. She thought about the hatred in Mrs. Henderson's eyes, the way Tom Pritchard had spat at her feet. Sleep came in fitful bursts, filled with nightmares of angry faces and grasping hands. When dawn broke hot and cloudless, Eliza found Cole already awake and tending to the animals. She brought him coffee and fresh biscuits, and they sat together on the porch steps watching the sun climb into another merciless sky, still no clouds. Eliza observed unnecessarily. "It will rain eventually," Cole said. "It always does. What if it does not?" Eliza voiced the fear that had been growing in her heart. What if the drought continues? How long before they stop listening to reason and come for me anyway? Cole was quiet for a long moment. "Then we will face it together. I will not let them hurt you." "You cannot protect me forever," Eliza said. "You have your own life, your own work at the ranch." "The ranch can spare me," Cole said firmly. "And I meant what I said. I will not stand by and watch this happen again." Over the following days, Cole became a constant presence in Eliza's life. He continued to sleep in her barn each night, and during the days he helped repair things around her property that needed fixing. He mended her fence, patched a hole in her roof, and even managed to coax a little more water from the dying creek to keep her animals hydrated. In return, Eliza cooked meals for them both and found herself looking forward to their conversations in the evening when the worst heat of the day had passed. She learned that Cole had been drifting since his sister's death, unable to settle anywhere that reminded him of what he had lost. He had worked ranches from Texas to Montana before landing at the Double R outside Redemption Springs 6 months ago. He was good with horses, patient and gentle despite his rough exterior. He had never married, never even come close, too haunted by the past to let anyone in. Eliza shared her own story in turn, how her parents had died in a typhoid outbreak back in Ohio, how she had sold everything and come west seeking a place where she could make a difference, where she could teach children and build something meaningful. How lonely she had been in Redemption Springs even before the accusations started, never quite fitting in with the established families and their tight-knit communities. "You fit just fine," Cole told her one evening as they sat on her porch watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of orange and red. "They just cannot see past their own fear." "Maybe they are right to be afraid," Eliza said quietly. "The crops are dying, cattle are dying. If it does not rain soon, people will starve." "That is not your fault," Cole insisted, turning to look at her with those steady gray eyes. "You cannot control the weather any more than I can." But the next time Eliza ventured into town for supplies, the hostility had only grown worse. The general store owner refused to sell to her. The bank manager crossed the street to avoid her. Children who had once been her students ran away when they saw her coming, their parents having filled their heads with tales of witches and curses. Only the young priest, Father Miguel, showed her any kindness, slipping her a loaf of bread when no one was looking and whispering that he would pray for her safety. Cole was waiting by her wagon when she emerged from the church, his face dark with anger. "They turned you away from the store." "It was not a question." "Word travels fast," Eliza said wearily. "This cannot continue," Cole said. "You need supplies. You cannot live on air and hope." "I still have some provisions at home," Eliza said, though they both knew her stores were running low. "I will manage." But Cole was already striding toward the general store, his hand resting on the gun at his hip in a way that made people step aside. Eliza hurried after him, her heart in her throat. "You will sell her what she needs," Cole said to the store owner, a portly man named Silas Webb who stood behind his counter with his arms crossed. "I will not," Silas replied stubbornly. "I do not serve witches." "She is not a witch, you fool," Cole snapped. "And if you do not sell to her, I will make sure every ranch hand and cowboy within 50 miles knows that Webb's General Store turns away paying customers. See how your business does then." Silas's face turned red. "Are you threatening me, Brennan?" "I am making you a promise," Cole said coldly. "Now get Miss Hartwell her supplies, or I will take them and leave payment on your counter. Your choice." The tension in the store was thick enough to cut. Eliza could see Silas weighing his options, see the calculation in his eyes. Finally, with obvious reluctance, he began pulling items from his shelves. "This is not over," Silas muttered as he tallied up her purchases. "The rain will not come until she leaves." "The rain will come when it comes," Cole shot back. "And when it does, you will all owe Miss Hartwell an apology." They loaded Eliza's supplies into her wagon in tense silence. As they left town, Eliza finally spoke. "You cannot keep fighting my battles for me, Cole. Sooner or later you will pay a price for defending me." "Let them try," Cole said grimly, but Eliza could see the worry in his eyes. He was one man against an entire town's worth of fear and superstition. How long could he hold them back? That night, as Cole settled into the barn again, Eliza lay awake in her cabin thinking about everything that had happened. She had been in Redemption Springs for 3 months, and in that time her entire life had been upended. But through all the fear and hostility, there had been Cole. Steady, protective Cole who asked nothing of her except the chance to help. She realized with a start that she was beginning to care for him, to look forward to his presence not just for the safety he provided but for the warmth of his company. The way his eyes crinkled when he smiled, the low rumble of his laugh, the gentle way he handled the animals. She was falling for him, and it terrified her almost as much as the angry townspeople did. The following week brought even more heat and no relief. The temperature soared past 100 degrees day after day. The creek on Eliza's property dried up completely. In town, 2 elderly residents died from the heat, and a child fell seriously ill from drinking contaminated water. The desperation grew palpable, and with it, the anger toward Eliza intensified. It came to a head on a Sunday after church services. Father Miguel had allowed Eliza to attend Mass, though she had to sit in the back and endure hostile stares throughout the service. As she was leaving, Tom Pritchard blocked her path, backed by a half-dozen other farmers. "We have tried being patient," Tom said, his voice hard. "But the drought continues. Our families are suffering. It is time for you to go, Miss Hartwell." "This is my home," Eliza said, trying to keep her voice steady despite the fear coursing through her. "I have done nothing wrong." "Then prove it, Mrs. Henderson said, pushing forward through the group. She held a thick Bible in her gnarled hands. "Swear on this holy book that you have not cursed our town." "I will swear on anything you like," Eliza said desperately. "I am not a witch. I have not cursed anyone." But before she could reach for the Bible, Cole appeared beside her. She had not even seen him approach. "That is enough harassment," Cole said quietly, but there was steel in his voice. "Miss Hartwell is leaving now. Anyone who tries to stop her will answer to me." "You are making a mistake defending her, Brennan," Tom warned. "When the town turns on her, it will turn on you too." "Then I will face it the same way she has," Cole replied. "With my head held high and my conscience clear, now step aside." The farmers held their ground for a long, tense moment. Eliza could see hands drifting toward guns, could feel violence hanging in the air like the heat. Then Father Miguel stepped out of the church. "That is enough," the young priest said firmly. "This is the Lord's day. There will be no violence on holy ground. Everyone go home to your families." The crowd dispersed slowly, reluctantly. Eliza sagged with relief, and Cole took her elbow to steady her. "Thank you, Father," Eliza said to the priest. Father Miguel shook his head sadly. "I only delayed the inevitable, I fear. You should consider leaving Redemption Springs, Miss Hartwell." "I do not know how much longer I can ensure your safety." "She has every right to stay," Cole insisted. "I do not disagree," Father Miguel said. "But rights do not stop bullets or fire. I have seen what desperate people are capable of. Please, both of you, be careful." The ride back to Eliza's cabin was silent, both of them lost in dark thoughts. When they arrived, Eliza found herself reluctant to let Cole return to the barn. She wanted him close, wanted the comfort of his presence. "Would you like to come inside for coffee?" she asked, knowing it was improper but no longer caring about propriety. Cole hesitated, clearly aware of the implications, but then nodded. "I would like that." They sat at her small kitchen table, drinking bitter coffee made from grounds that had been reused too many times. The cabin was stifling despite the open windows, the heat refusing to break even as evening approached. "I am scared, Cole," Eliza admitted quietly. "Not just for myself, but for you. You have put yourself in danger for me, and I do not know how to repay that." "I do not want repayment," Cole said. He reached across the table and took her hand, his calloused fingers gentle against her skin. "I want you to be safe. I want to wake up knowing you are all right. I want—" He trailed off, his jaw working as he struggled with words. "What do you want?" Eliza whispered. Cole looked at her then, really looked at her, and she saw something in his eyes that made her breath catch. "I want a future where we do not have to be afraid, where you can teach your students and I can work the ranch and we can just be." He paused, then added quietly, "Together." Eliza's heart hammered in her chest. "Together." "I know it is too soon," Cole said quickly. "I know we have only known each other a few weeks, and this is the worst possible time to speak of such things, but Eliza, I cannot help how I feel. You are brave and kind and strong." You face each day with courage even when the world has turned against you. I have been drifting for 7 years, unable to find a place that felt like home. But sitting here with you, I finally feel like I belong somewhere. Tears spilled down Eliza's cheeks. I feel the same way. You are the only good thing to come from this nightmare. When I see you each morning, it gives me hope that everything will be all right. I think I am falling in love with you, Cole Brennan, and it terrifies me. Cole stood and moved around the table, pulling Eliza to her feet and into his arms. She went willingly, pressing her face against his chest and breathing in the scent of him, leather and horse and sunshine. It terrifies me too, Cole murmured against her hair. But maybe that means it is real. Maybe we are meant to find each other in the middle of all this darkness. Eliza pulled back just enough to look up at him. What if the rain never comes? What if they force me to leave? Then we leave together, Cole said firmly. I will go wherever you go, Eliza, I promise you that. He kissed her then, gentle and sweet, and Eliza felt something break open in her chest. All the fear and loneliness of the past month seemed to fade in the warmth of his embrace. When they finally pulled apart, both breathing hard, the world felt different somehow, more hopeful. Stay with me tonight, Eliza whispered. Not in the barn, here I do not want to be alone anymore. Cole stroked her cheek with his thumb. Are you sure? I do not want to compromise your reputation any more than it already has been. Eliza laughed, a slightly hysterical sound. My reputation is already destroyed, Cole. They think I am a witch. I would rather spend whatever time I have left being happy than worrying about what people think. So Cole stayed, and they talked through the night, sharing stories and dreams and fears. They fell asleep in each other's arms on Eliza's narrow bed as the heat finally broke just enough to allow rest. When Eliza woke the next morning, she found Cole already awake, watching her with a soft expression that made her heart flutter. Good morning, she murmured. The best morning I have had in years, Cole replied, pressing a kiss to her forehead. They rose and faced the day together, falling into an easy routine. Cole did his work around the property while Eliza tended to her animals and tried to salvage what she could from her dead garden. They took meals together and spent the evenings on the porch, watching the cloudless sky and hoping for change. 3 more weeks passed in this way. The drought dragged on, now 4 months without significant rain. The situation in Redemption Springs grew increasingly desperate. Several families packed up and left, seeking better opportunities elsewhere. Those who remained grew more hostile, more convinced that Eliza was somehow responsible for their suffering. Then one morning in early September, Eliza woke to find Cole standing at the window staring out at the pre-dawn darkness. What is wrong? She asked, immediately alert. Someone is coming, Cole said quietly. He was already strapping on his gun belt. Multiple riders. They are trying to be quiet, but Copper woke me with his restlessness. Fear shot through Eliza like ice water. How many? At least 6, maybe more. Cole turned to face her, his expression grim. Eliza, I need you to trust me. Go out the back window and hide in the creek bed. There is enough brush there to conceal you. I will not leave you, Eliza protested. You will if you want both of us to survive this, Cole said firmly. He crossed to her and gripped her shoulders. I can talk them down if they do not see you. But if they see you, if they think they can get to you, things will turn violent. Please, Eliza, do this for me. Eliza wanted to argue, wanted to stay and fight, but she could see the desperate plea in Cole's eyes. Promise me you will be careful. I promise, Cole said. He kissed her quickly, fiercely. Now go. Eliza climbed out the back window and ran through the darkness to the dry creek bed, burrowing into the sparse brush and trying to make herself invisible. Her heart pounded so hard she thought it might burst from her chest. She could hear horses now, the creak of saddle leather, low voices. Brennan, that was Tom Pritchard's voice. We know you are in there. Send out the witch. There is no witch here, Cole called back, stepping out onto the porch. Eliza could just barely see him from her hiding spot, tall and solid in the growing dawn light. Just a woman trying to live her life in peace. Peace. Another voice, angry and desperate. How can there be peace when our children are starving, when our crops are dead and our wells are running dry? That is not Eliza's fault, Cole said steadily. The drought has hit every town in Kansas, you know that. This is just nature, cruel and random. Driving away an innocent woman will not bring the rain. Maybe not, Tom said, and Eliza could hear the ugly determination in his voice. But it will sure make us feel like we tried everything. Now step aside, Brennan. We do not want to hurt you, but we will if we have to. You will have to, Cole said simply. His hand rested on his gun. Because I am not moving. The silence that followed was terrible. Eliza bit her lip to keep from crying out, knowing that any sound from her would give away her position and make everything worse. She could see the riders now, 7 men on horseback, all armed. Cole was outnumbered and outgunned, but he stood his ground without flinching. This is your last chance, Tom warned. Same to you, Cole replied. Ride away now and we will forget this happened. Come any closer and I will defend this property and its owner with my life. One of the men raised his rifle. Eliza's breath caught in her throat. Time seemed to slow down, every second stretching into eternity. Cole's hand moved toward his gun, and then, impossibly, miraculously, she felt it. A single drop of water on her upturned face, then another, then another. Rain, someone whispered. The drops came faster, turning from a sprinkle to a shower to a downpour in the space of heartbeats. Eliza tilted her face up to the sky, letting the water wash over her, hardly daring to believe it was real. The drought had broken. After 4 months of relentless sun and heat, the heavens had finally opened. The men on horseback sat frozen, staring up at the sky in wonder. The rain pelted down, soaking everything, turning the dust to mud. On the porch, Cole stood motionless, water streaming down his face. The rain came, Tom Pritchard said, his voice stunned. The rain actually came. It has nothing to do with witchcraft, Cole said firmly. It never did. Now get off this property before I lose my patience. The men wheeled their horses around and rode away, their purpose forgotten in the face of the miracle occurring around them. Eliza waited until they were out of sight before crawling out of her hiding spot and running to the cabin. Cole met her halfway, catching her up in his arms and spinning her around as the rain poured down on them both. It rained, Eliza sobbed, laughing and crying at the same time. Cole, it actually rained. I knew it would, Cole said, holding her tight. I knew we just had to hold on a little longer. They stood in the rain for a long time, clinging to each other, letting the water wash away months of fear and tension. When they finally went inside, both soaked to the skin, they found themselves laughing at the sheer absurdity of it all. They will think I made it rain, Eliza said, wringing out her hair. Let them think what they want, Cole replied. They did not hurt you. That is all that matters. But when Eliza ventured into town 2 days later, she found the mood had shifted dramatically. The rain had continued intermittently, soaking the parched earth and refilling wells and streams. The crisis had passed, and with it, much of the anger toward Eliza. Tom Pritchard actually approached her outside the general store, hat in hand, looking uncomfortable. Miss Hartwell, he said gruffly, I owe you an apology, we all do. We let fear and desperation turn us into a mob, that was wrong. Eliza studied him carefully. You nearly killed Cole, you came to my home with guns and violence. I know, Tom said, his face flushing. I am not proud of what we almost did. But the rain came and it made me see clearly again. You are not a witch. You are just a woman who had the misfortune of arriving during a drought. I am sorry for the trouble we caused you. It was not enough, not nearly enough to make up for the terror and suffering of the past months. But Eliza could see the genuine remorse in his eyes, and she found herself nodding slowly. Thank you for the apology, she said quietly. I hope we can all move forward from this. I hope so too, Tom said. He started to leave, then turned back. That cowboy of yours, Brennan, he is a good man. You are lucky to have someone willing to stand beside you like that. Eliza felt warmth bloom in her chest. I know, I am very lucky indeed. Over the following weeks, as the rain continued to fall and the land slowly recovered, Life in Redemption Springs gradually returned to normal. The farmers planted fall crops. The children returned to school, including to Eliza's classroom. People began treating her with cautious friendliness, though some like Mrs. Henderson remained coldly distant. Eliza found she could live with that. She had Cole, and that made everything else bearable. Cole moved out of her barn and into her cabin properly, and though it caused some gossip, no one dared say anything directly. The memory of him standing alone against 7 armed men had earned him a reputation as someone not to be trifled with. More importantly, people had seen his devotion to Eliza, the way he had risked everything to protect her. Even the most traditional townspeople had to admit there was something noble in that. On a cool October evening, as they sat on the porch watching the sun set behind clouds that promised more rain, Cole took Eliza's hand. "Marry me," he said simply. Eliza turned to stare at him, her heart leaping. "What? Marry me?" Cole repeated. He pulled a simple gold band from his pocket, clearly old and well-worn. "This was my mother's ring. She gave it to me before she died and told me to give it to a woman worthy of it. I cannot think of anyone more worthy than you, Eliza. You are the strongest, bravest person I have ever known. I want to spend the rest of my life standing beside you, facing whatever comes our way together." Tears filled Eliza's eyes. Yes, of course I will marry you." Cole slipped the ring onto her finger and it fit perfectly. They kissed as the rain began to fall again, gentle and steady, the sound of it on the roof like music. They were married 2 weeks later in Father Miguel's small church, with most of the town in attendance. Even Mrs. Henderson came, though she sat in the back and did not smile. Tom Pritchard and several other farmers presented them with a handmade quilt as a wedding gift, another gesture of apology and acceptance. Eliza wore a simple white dress that she sewed herself, and Cole wore his best suit, and when they said their vows, both of them had tears in their eyes. "I promise to stand beside you always," Cole said, his voice rough with emotion. "In drought and in rain, in good times and bad, you are my home, Eliza Brennan." "And you are mine," Eliza replied, her voice steady and sure. "I promise to love you with everything I have, for all the days of our life together." They moved into the cabin together officially, and Cole took a permanent position at the Double R Ranch while Eliza continued teaching. Life settled into a comfortable rhythm. The land recovered beautifully from the drought, the spring rains bringing an explosion of wildflowers and green grass. Farmers who had nearly lost everything managed to bring in decent fall and then excellent spring harvests. Redemption Springs prospered, and with prosperity came forgiveness and healing. A year after their wedding, Eliza discovered she was pregnant. Cole was beside himself with joy and nervousness, fussing over her constantly. When their son was born on a warm summer evening in 1885, both of them wept at the sight of him, perfect and healthy and whole. "What should we name him?" Eliza asked, cradling the baby against her chest. Cole was quiet for a long moment, his finger gently stroking their son's tiny hand. "What about Miguel, after the father who helped us?" "Miguel Brennan," Eliza said softly, testing the name. "I like it." "Miguel Thomas, perhaps after your father, Miguel Thomas Brennan," Cole agreed, his voice thick with emotion. "Our son." They raised Miguel in the cabin by the creek, which Cole expanded over the years into a proper house. 2 years after Miguel came a daughter, Anna, named after Cole's lost sister, then another son, James, and finally another daughter, Sophie. The house was always full of noise and laughter and love. Eliza taught school for 15 years before retiring to focus on her growing family. Cole worked his way up to foreman at the Double R Ranch, respected by all who knew him for his skill and integrity. The story of how he had stood alone against a mob to protect his future wife became legend in Redemption Springs, told and retold until it took on mythic proportions. On their 25th wedding anniversary in 1909, Cole and Eliza sat on their porch watching their grandchildren play in the yard. Miguel had married a local girl and given them 3 grandchildren. Anna was courting a young rancher from the next county. James and Sophie were still living at home, both in their teenage years and full of energy and dreams. Do you ever think about that summer? Eliza asked quietly, her head resting on Cole's shoulder. When everyone thought I was a witch, sometimes, Cole admitted, but not with anger anymore, more with gratitude. Gratitude? Eliza lifted her head to look at him in surprise. Cole smiled, the lines around his eyes crinkling in the way she loved. If not for that drought, I might never have had the courage to speak to you. I might have just admired you from afar and let you slip away. The fear and danger forced us together, forced me to show you how I felt. I would not wish those times on anyone, but I cannot regret what came from them. Eliza laced her fingers through his. I feel the same way. Those were the darkest days of my life, but they led to the brightest. Everything good I have came from you standing beside me when the rain finally came. I will always stand beside you, Cole said, kissing her temple, until my last breath. They sat together as the sun set, painting the Kansas sky in shades of gold and orange and red. A gentle rain began to fall, the kind of soft, steady rain that farmers prayed for. Their grandchildren squealed and ran for the porch, and Eliza opened her arms to them, gathering them close. Tell us the story, Grandma, the oldest boy begged, about when you made it rain. I did not make it rain, Eliza said gently, as she had said 1,000 times before. No one can make it rain. It was just good timing and God's grace. Tell us anyway, the boy insisted, so Eliza told them, with Cole adding details here and there. She told them about the drought and the fear and the accusations. She told them about the day Cole stood up for her in the town square, about how he had protected her when no one else would. She told them about the morning 7 men rode to their cabin with violence in their hearts, and how the rain had come just in time to save them all. That is how I knew your grandfather was the one for me, Eliza finished. Because when the whole world turned against me, he stood beside me without hesitation. That is what real love looks like, children. Not grand gestures or pretty words, but someone who stays when staying is hard. Someone who chooses you every day, even when it costs them something. The grandchildren listened with wide eyes, thoroughly captivated even though they had heard the story before. When Eliza finished, they ran back out into the gentle rain, splashing in puddles and laughing. Cole pulled Eliza close and she melted into his embrace. Thank you, he said quietly. For what? For saying yes that night when I asked you to marry me. For taking a chance on a drifting cowboy with too much past and not enough future. For giving me a home and a family and a reason to keep going. For everything, Eliza, just everything. Eliza turned in his arms and kissed him, long and sweet and full of 25 years of love and partnership. Thank you for standing beside me when the rain came, she whispered against his lips. Thank you for staying beside me every day since. They remained on the porch until the rain stopped and the stars came out, bright and clear in the Kansas sky. Their children and grandchildren eventually came inside, filling the house with warmth and life. Eliza looked around at everything they had built together, all that had grown from those dark days during the drought, and felt her heart overflow with gratitude. She had been blamed for something beyond her control, had faced the very real threat of violence and death. But through it all, Cole had been there. He had stood beside her when it mattered most, had chosen her when choosing her was dangerous. That choice had changed both their lives, had given them this beautiful, full, rich existence together. As they finally headed to bed, passing through rooms filled with family photographs and children's drawings and all the accumulated treasures of a long life together, Cole took her hand. "What are you thinking about?" he asked. "About rain," Eliza said with a smile. "How it always comes eventually if you are patient enough and brave enough to wait for it. How the driest seasons can lead to the most beautiful blooms." Cole kissed her hand. "I am glad I waited with you." "I am glad you did too," Eliza replied. They climbed into bed together, still hand in hand after 25 years of marriage. and fell asleep to the sound of gentle rain beginning to fall once more on the roof above them. Outside, the land they had worked so hard to build a life on soaked up the moisture gratefully, the crops growing strong and healthy in the fields. The drought that had nearly destroyed Eliza had instead led her to the greatest love of her life, and she would be grateful for that gift until her dying day. The next morning dawned clear and bright, the rain having passed through in the night. Cole was up early as always, but this time he brought Eliza coffee in bed, a rare treat that made her smile. "What is the occasion?" she asked, accepting the cup gratefully. "No occasion," Cole said, sitting beside her on the bed. "Just wanted to do something nice for my wife." They spent the day working on the ranch together as they had for decades, moving in comfortable synchronicity born of long partnership. Miguel stopped by with his family, and they all had lunch together, the table crowded and noisy with conversation and laughter. Anna sent a letter saying she and her beau would be visiting next month and had important news to share, which Eliza strongly suspected meant a proposal was imminent. As evening fell and their grandchildren headed home, Cole and Eliza found themselves alone on the porch once more, their favorite spot to end each day. The sky was clear, dotted with the first stars of evening, and a cool breeze brought the scent of rain-fresh earth. "Hard to believe it has been 25 years, Cole mused. "Feels like we just got married yesterday." "And like we have been together forever at the same time," Eliza added. "Is that strange?" "Not at all," Cole said. "That is what it feels like when you find the right person. Like they have always been part of your life, even before you met them." Eliza leaned her head on his shoulder. "Do you think people in town still remember, still tell the story?" "Oh, I am sure they do," Cole said with a chuckle. "That kind of tale does not fade easily. The witch who brought the drought and the cowboy who defended her, it has all the elements of a good legend." "Except I was not a witch," Eliza protested, laughing. "The best legends are always part truth and part fiction," Cole pointed out. "The important parts are true. You were blamed. I stood beside you. The rain came. We fell in love. Everything else is just embellishment." They sat in comfortable silence for a while, watching the night deepen around them. Inside the house, they could hear James practicing his fiddle and Sophie singing along. Their children had grown into good, strong people, and their grandchildren were following the same path. The legacy they were building was not one of fear and superstition, but of love and courage and standing up for what was right. "I would do it all again," Cole said suddenly. "Every single moment. The fear, the danger, the uncertainty. I would face it all again in a heartbeat if it meant ending up here with you." Eliza felt tears sting her eyes, happy tears born of deep contentment. "So would I. Even the worst parts led to the best parts. I would not change a single thing." Cole kissed her forehead gently. "My Eliza, my brave, beautiful Eliza." "My Cole," Eliza replied. "My protector, my partner, my love." They remained on the porch until the sky filled with stars, until the moon rose bright and full over the Kansas prairie. Eventually, the evening chill drove them inside, where they banked the fire and climbed the stairs to their bedroom hand in hand, just as they had done for 25 years, just as they would continue to do for all the years remaining to them. The story of the drought and the accusations and the rain that came in time would be told for generations in Redemption Springs. It would become part of the town's history, a cautionary tale about fear and mob mentality, but also a story of hope and love conquering adversity. Parents would tell their children about the brave schoolteacher and the loyal cowboy, about the importance of standing up for what is right even when everyone else is wrong. But for Cole and Eliza, it was not a story or a legend. It was simply their life, the foundation upon which they had built everything that mattered. It was the moment they found each other, the instant they chose each other, the beginning of a love that would last a lifetime and beyond, and every time it rained, they would remember. They would remember the drought, and the fear, and the moment the heavens opened and washed away all the anger and blame. They would remember standing together in that downpour, holding each other tight, knowing that they had survived the worst and would face whatever came next side by side. That was their story, that was their truth, and it was enough.